Hello everyone, and welcome back to Think Outside the Board. I'm your host Brian Toohey, and today is the late June Kickstarter update. So today I'm going to be profiling seven Kickstarters that will be completing their funding in the last half of June. So that's June 15th through June 30th. Following that, I'll do some short sections on games that I've pledged since the last video and games that I have acquired since the last video. And then I'll talk about the games that I've played since the last video as well in a bit more detail. Now, before I get into talking about the specific Kickstarters that will be completing their funding during the last half of June, I probably should talk for just a moment about the shipping situation that's going on. Now, over the last year and a half, because of COVID, there has been a shutdown of factories in China, which has translated to shipping delays, and everything is kind of piled up. And then the incident at the Suez Canal, I think, worsened that. And so now we're in a situation where games companies are going and getting like 5 times the estimate for shipping that they had when they were running their campaigns, sometimes more. So it's becoming very prohibitive, and I think any small games publishers looking to publish a game right now could end up taking a financial hit that when you combine it with the production cost of the game, it could balloon into far larger than what they stand to make, putting them in debt or out of business completely. So right now, in June here, in the second half of June, there are less games than there normally would be. I'm only going to be talking about 7 games, and typically it's probably at least a dozen. And I'm already looking forward into July and seeing that there aren't a lot of games probably that will be on this list for July. Like, as short as this list is now, maybe even shorter in the next couple of episodes. So I think that's something for consumers to be aware of, just the fact that shipping is so high right now. It does seem like more and more companies are maybe waiting right now, maybe not launching. Companies that were ready to launch are going to put it off for a few months and hope that the situation with the shipping improves. I think that it will. And hopefully, over the coming months, as goods get shipped out, that will return more or less to normal. But it may be a few months before we see a lot of big Kickstarters launching, or before publishers feel comfortable entering into this kind of production agreement, because they may want to wait until they have a little better idea of how much that shipping is going to balloon or stay ballooned. So it's just something to be aware of, I think, industry-wide right now. And it also means that there may be shorter videos from me in this topic for the next month or 2 or 3. We'll see as it goes. But if there is, then it will leave me more time for other things and more time to talk about played games. So either way, there'll be plenty of content. But I think it's something that backers maybe want to thinking about right now, just understanding and knowing that there is this enormous shipping hike that could affect any currently pledged games or even games that are launching now. But I do believe that it is a temporary bubble. Okay. So the game that's first on this list is the Robot Quest Arena deck building game, and this one will fund on June 17th. Now, their minimum requested funding was $25,000. They're currently sitting at $369,000, or 15 times their originally requested funding. This is a game for 2 to 4 players. I'd put it at a medium-light complexity and a medium-low risk factor on the campaign. Now, it's essentially a deck builder, and you're going to be using cards to control these robot miniatures. So it's a deck builder. It's also kind of a little arena combat game with these miniatures that you're making more powerful as you play with your cards. And then you're fighting the other miniatures. Now, it's published by Wise Wizard Games, which, if like me, you thought, oh, that doesn't quite sound right, that's because until March of this year, it was called White Wizard Games, and the company had been named after Gandalf, but I think they're trying to be more inclusive and change their name so that there's not white in the title, and instead they're using the word wise to refer to Gandalf. So moving forward, White Wizard Games will now be Wise Wizard Games. And if White Wizard Games is familiar to you, that's because they publish Hero Realms and Star Realms and all those franchises. So the most popular of their games, the ones that rank within the top 1,000 over at Board Game Geek, include Hero Realms, Star Realms Colony Wars, and Star Realms Frontiers. The game is designed by Paul Waite, and this is his first design. And there are 4 artists on this one: Kevin French, Zach Weston, James McDonald, and Mike Wilcox. And for all of them, this is either their first published game or their first game that will hopefully see any kind of wider distribution. Now, there are 2 levels that you can pledge on this one. For $49, you can pledge the basic tech tier, and that will get you the base game along with any associated stretch goals, and also a card and tile promo pack. But if you want all the miniatures, which I think is what is going to make this game really cool, then you're going to want to pledge at the $89 high tech tier, and that will include everything in the basic tech tier plus 3 robot packs: the Jaws, Kettle, and Dozer robot packs. And the Dozer pack is a Kickstarter exclusive, just like the card and tile promo pack is a Kickstarter exclusive. So neither of those 2 things will be available at retail. And this game is aiming to deliver in May 2022. Next up is Paris L'Etoile, which will fund on June 18th. Now, they had a minimum requested funding of $20,000. They're currently sitting at $80,000, so about 4 times that requested funding. Paris L'Etoile is actually an expansion, so you're going to need the Paris base game to play it. And this is one that I skipped over the first time around. It was on Kickstarter a year or 2 ago, and it seemed very well made, but it was also a tile placement and set collection game, and there are a lot of those out there, and I have a lot of those. I have a bunch of those. So it just becomes a thing where, oh, this game is doing something that there are a lot of other things out there that do it well. So I didn't back it the first time around. But since it delivered, it has kind of risen in the ranks of those games that do this thing very well. And Paris has been a huge hit the last year for sort of medium light, medium heavy, like right in the middle kind of medium gamers. And it's just a great tile placement and set collection game. Area majority has an area majority mechanic. It's got a lot of really good physical and graphic design, and it looks really, really nice on the table and just very thematic for what you're doing. So this is one of those games that has just kind of risen to the top of its genre this last year and been very, very popular. So if anyone missed it the first time around, I think now is a really good time to take a look and realize that you have a second chance at acquiring this game in its deluxe form. So it plays 2 to 4 players. It is a medium weight game. Board Game Geek has it just edging over the line into medium heavy. It feels more like medium light to me, but statistically that's how it's getting rated right now. And I would put the risk on this one as medium low as well, because it's being put out by another really, really solid publisher. So as I already mentioned, it is an expansion, and the key elements in this one are area majority, tile placement, and set collection. So what this expansion will bring to that is variable player powers and a new collection of bonus tiles. So you're going to get some things that will allow you to sort of expand what the game does, and then other things that will give you more variability within the game. Now, it's being published by Game Brewer, who has been having a fantastic run lately with games like Hippocrates and Stroganoff, but they're big games. The ones that are sort of in the tops over at Board Game Geek that have been around for a little while are Gentes, Gugong, and Chimera Station. Now, this game is designed by Michael Kiesling and Wolfgang Kramer. They are some fairly prolific game designers, so they have long credits. But I feel like I need to read these credits so that if the games that I'm mentioning are known to you, that this might kind of pop up and you might realize, oh, that's these guys? Oh, maybe I do want to get Paris. So here are their credits, which I'm not going to have all of them memorized, but Michael Kiesling has worked on Azul Stained Glass of Sintra, Azul Summer Pavilion, Coal Baron, Heaven and Ale, Linko, Maharaja, the game of palace building in India, Mexica, the Palaces of Carrera, Riverboat, Tikal, Torres, and Vikings. And Kiesling and Kramer often work together, so you're going to hear a lot of the same games, but a bunch of different games as well. So Wolfgang Kramer has worked on Six Nimmt, Coal Baron, Colosseum, Downforce, El Grande, Linko, Maharaja, the game of palace building in India, Mexica, the Palaces of Carrera, the Princes of Florence, Tikal, and Torres. And then the artist on Paris L'Etoile is the same artist from Paris, which is great. That means everything's going to look really good together. And that's Andreas Resch. And he has worked on City of the Big Shoulders, Firenze, Great Western Trail, Gugong, Hadara, Istanbul the Dice Game, Lorenzo Il Magnifico, Mombasa, Pictomania, the Spakerstadt, and Tinner's Trail. Now, there aren't a lot of pledge options on this. It's not very complicated. For $20, you can pledge for the new expansion, Paris L'Etoile. And for $99, you can pledge for the deluxe big box, which will include the original Kickstarter version of Paris and the new expansion. And Paris L'Etoile is aimed to deliver in December of 2021. From there, we're going to talk about My Singing Monsters, which is a cool little worker placement game. I think it's aimed probably more at kids. It is going to complete funding on June 22nd. Now, they originally had a $25,000 minimum requested funding goal. They're currently sitting at $60,000, so about 2.5 times their minimum requested funding. This game will play 2 to 5 players. I would put the complexity on it at medium light, and the risk on this campaign as high, and that is because it is being published by a new publisher. It's designed by a couple of designers who've been around. They've designed a bunch of games, well-rated, much-played games, so it's solid on the design front. It just happens to be a new publisher. And whenever I profile Kickstarters by newer publishers, I always start them at that high level of risk, because even if they're a company that's made a lot of games, if they haven't run a Kickstarter before, that's a whole different set of problems and skill sets and things to deal with. And I think now more than ever, with the shipping situation that's going on that I talked about at the top, there's going to be more risk involved. There's going to be more room for things to go wrong or prices to skyrocket. And this is something that we should be aware of when we're backing these things. So I'm going to put My Singing Monsters at a high risk level. The company that's publishing it is called Big Blue Bubble. And again, this is their first game that they've published, period. Either Kickstarter or otherwise, just first game. Now, it is designed by Jay Cormier and Sen-Fung Lim, who have worked together a bunch of times, fairly successfully on some games. So Jay has designed Akrotiri, Belfort, In the Hall of the Mountain King, and Junk Art. And Sen-Fung Lim has designed Akrotiri, Belfort, and Junk Art. Now, unfortunately, there's no credited artist on this anywhere. And I've looked on the Board Game Geek listing, I've looked through their Kickstarter campaign, I've looked at any draft rule books. I don't see credits towards any artist, which is unfortunate. A lot of times I don't even profile games if there are creators not credited. But because this is by Jay Cormier and Sen-Fung Lim, and it's a very cool looking game with these miniatures, these monster miniatures and worker placement for kids, and it's going to fund. I mean, we know it's going to fund, so I feel like it's something I still need to mention, but credit your artists, guys. It's really important. So again, on this campaign, there isn't a lot of complication on the pledge levels. There are really 2 pledge levels that you're going to be looking at. The first is for $33, and that is the standard edition. However, know that if you get that, you're not getting any of the monster miniatures, which is what is going to make this game so cool to play. I'm not sure if they have kind of cardboard tokens or standees, but you're not getting the monster miniatures at the $33 level. You're just getting the ability to play the game with its mechanics, with it not looking as pretty with all of the cool stuff. Now, at the $62 pledge level, you will be getting the minis. There are 5 of them, these 5 monster miniatures. You'll also get the Wordos expansion, which is an expansion with 4 more monster miniatures, so you'll be getting 9 in total. On top of that, you'll get something called the Wubbox Standee. So the Wubbox is this little building in the game, and if you just get the standard edition, you're basically going to get kind of like a flat piece of cardboard that will work for this building. But if you get the deluxe version, you're going to get like a standee version that's going to be constructed out of cardboard that you'll probably have to snap together once. Maybe you even have to kind of take it apart and put it back in the box, but it's going to have nice table presence, and it'll stand up on your table, and that will be the building in the game. And also in this deluxe version will be acrylic heat transfer tokens to replace the cardboard tokens from the base game. So you're looking either at $33 for the very, very kind of slim, bare bones standard version, or $62 for the version with all of the monster miniatures, the better tokens, and the little standee for the building. Now, My Singing Monsters is set to hopefully deliver in December 2021. The next game after that is Adventure Tactics Adventures in Alchemy. And this game is set to fund on June 24th. Their minimum requested funding goal for this one was $65,000. They're currently at $185,000, so that's about 3 times their minimum requested funding. This game will play 1 to 5 players. And if you already backed, you already have Adventure Tactics Damien's Tower, this game will integrate with that. So essentially, in Damien's Tower, there is a campaign that you're following, and part of that is kind of getting to Damien's Tower, and part of it is inside the tower. So this game will give you an alternate campaign for the part of the adventure going into the tower. So you will still need Damien's Tower to play Adventures in Alchemy. That's something you should be aware of here. Even though it has what feels in some ways like standalone content, it still is expansion content that integrates into Damien's Tower. So the gameplay on this one is medium light, I would classify it as, and I'd put the risk on this one at medium high just because these publishers haven't really done that much yet. They had a huge success with Damien's Tower, which is why I've bumped them from high to medium high. But that's really the only big thing that they've done yet. So they've kind of had one big successful delivered Kickstarter. Now, this is a campaign-driven co-op game with miniatures. You might compare it to other bigger, more complex games like Gloomhaven. And it is that kind of a game, but it's that kind of a game on a smaller, cuter scale, perhaps more kid-friendly. Just not with all of the complexity or glut of a Gloomhaven. So it's attempting to be that kind of a dungeon crawler campaign game, but in a more accessible, friendly way with more accessible, friendly graphic design that will appeal to all ages and won't be so gloomy. So Adventure Tactics, like the first one, is published by Letterman Games, and they have previously published Adventure Tactics Damien's Tower, a smaller card game called Matryoshka, and another smaller card game called Squire for Hire. It's designed by Nicholas Yu, who his big thing has been the previous game, Adventure Tactics Damien's Tower, but he's also designed a couple of games called Eternal Dynasty and Hero Brigade. And the art is by Jacob Croft, who previously worked on Adventure Tactics Damien's Tower, so it's gonna look the same. That's awesome, that's great. As far as his credits, that was really his first big published game. Now, there are 4 different pledge levels for this one, really. For $35, you're going to get the new Adventures in Alchemy expansion, as well as something called the Side Quest Guide 2. Now, if you don't have the base game and you need it to play this and you want to get this, the cheapest pledge level to get that will be the $125 pledge level. That's for the base game and the expansion. And so you'll get the expansion that I previously mentioned from the $35 pledge level, along with that Side Quest Guide 2, but you'll also get the base game added as well. If you want to go a bit bigger and get more of the stuff, so for $180, you can pledge the big box pack, which will take the base game out. So it's going to add in a lot of extras, but there's no base game involved. So you'll get the expansion, you'll get the Secret Quest Guide 2, but you'll also get Hero Pack 1, Enemy Pack 1, Enemy Pack 2, and neoprene player mats. So this is kind of what you want if you have the base game. Maybe you got it at retail, you don't have any of the extras for it, so this will give you all of the extras, just not the base game. If you still need the base game, you're going to want to pledge at the $250 level, which is called Call to Adventure, and that will throw in everything that we've already mentioned and the base game. This one will tentatively, hopefully, deliver in June 2022. After that, we go to Fall of the Mountain King, which is going to fund on June 24th as well. And this one had a minimum requested funding goal of $53,000. Sometimes Kickstarters are launched in other currencies. Like I think this one was launched in Canadian. So when I say a number like that, 53,000, I think the reason it's such a weird number is that it was adjusted from like a Canadian figure that probably was more of a round number. Anyway, their minimum requested funding in terms of US dollars was $53,000. They currently have $245,000, so they're operating at about 4.5 times their minimum requested funding. Fall of the Mountain King can be played with 1 to 5 players. We don't really know where it's going to sit complexity-wise, but if we use its prequel game as a basis, I'd put it at medium light to medium heavy, probably edging into the medium heavy space. And I would also put the risk on this one at medium high. The publisher, Burnt Island Games, has had several very popular games, but they've only really produced a few campaigns so far. This game is going to be focused on mechanics like drafting and action points and area majority. And you can get in the Hall of the Mountain King and the Kickstarter version of it through this campaign. So if that's something that you've been looking for and you wanted, you'll be able to get that here, and you'll be able to get the Kickstarter version. But know that the art and the design team for these games are different. So this isn't a case like some of the games that I've already been talking about where it's an expansion or a sequel with the same teams. One of the designers, Jay Cormier on In the Hall of the Mountain King, did work on development for this one, but the designer and the artists are different and new from In the Hall of the Mountain King. So it's all good. Just know that you're getting a product that is by different designers and different artists and is a separate thing. It's just sort of a thematic prequel to In the Hall of the Mountain King. Burnt Island Games has previously produced Endeavor Age of Sail and In the Hall of the Mountain King. And the designer on this is Adam E. Dalton, who hasn't had any huge popular games that are like in the BGG Top 1000 or anything like that, but he has had 2 previously published games, and they are Kona and Ninja Camp. And then the art on this is by 2 artists who are also first-time artists, so this is their first game. And those 2 artists are Fahed Arajil and Xavier Cuenca. Now, there's only 2 pledge levels on this one as well, but there are several things going on with the add-ons, so I will talk about the add-ons after I talk about the pledge levels. So the first pledge level is $79, and that will get you this new game, Fall of the Mountain King, the Kickstarter edition, with the stretch goals. However, if you also want In the Hall of the Mountain King, you're going to want to back the $157 Hall and Fall bundle, and that will get you the Kickstarter versions of both games. However, if you had originally backed In the Hall of the Mountain King during that game's campaign, you would have gotten 2 things with it. One was a mini expansion that added variable player powers into the game, and one was a solo and co-op expansion called Cursed Mountain. You can get those both here, but they are not included in that bundle, so you'll have to get them as add-ons if you want them. And I think I probably would recommend picking them up. I mean, especially if you want to play solo. And then as far as the game itself, the multiplayer goes, I think having variable player powers is a really good thing to have. So if you want to add those things on, the Champions mini expansion, the one that adds the variable player powers into the game, is $4. If you want the Cursed Mountain expansion with the solo and co-op modes, that's going to be $12. Now here's an interesting thing that happened. The Kickstarter for In the Hall of the Mountain King had plastic pieces in it. And some people really liked those plastic pieces. Some people did not, and the retail version shipped with wooden pieces. And a lot of the audience really liked those wooden pieces. So if you were one of those people who in Hall of the Mountain King liked the retail version better and you really liked those wooden pieces, you can get wooden pieces for Fall of the Mountain King as an add-on. And that's going to be $20. So that is the Wood Bits pack. I mean, it's an interesting little thing. You're essentially paying more to downgrade, really. But some people seem to really like those wooden pieces. So if you want them, $20 more, you can get them as a pack. I'm assuming that that's probably going to be what's available at retail. So if you want to wait for retail, you'll probably get the wooden version there. But you can do it here if you want to add it on. The other thing is, while some people did like those wooden pieces, a lot of people really liked the plastic pieces that were only available in the Kickstarter. And they couldn't be found afterwards. Even through Burnt Island's website, they were sold out, and you really couldn't get these plastic pieces from In the Hall of the Mountain King. Well, you can get them now, and you can get them through this campaign. So for $35, you can get the Kickstarter upgrade pack for In the Hall of the Mountain King that will include those plastic pieces. Now just know, if you're buying the bundle with In the Hall of the Mountain King, the $157 bundle, you don't need that pack. You already have that in that bundle, because that will be the Kickstarter edition. But if you're somebody who had In the Hall of the Mountain King at retail, you can jump onto this campaign and get that upgrade pack here. And this Kickstarter, Fall of the Mountain King, is aimed to deliver in May 2022. After that, we have the next Kickstarter for the Isle of Cats. This one's called Isle of Cats, Don't Forget the Kittens. And this is blown up into a huge success. It will also fund on June 24th. Their minimum requested funding goal was $49,000, and they're currently sitting over $1 million, which is a huge success for Frank West and City of Games. And I'm really excited because he's a super nice guy, and Isle of Cats, I think, is my favorite tile placement game of all time. It's awesome. I love it. So they're currently sitting at 20.5 times their minimum requested funding and looking really, really good here. So I would call the Isle of Cats a medium light game. And I think the risk on this one is medium low. Frank has run a bunch of Kickstarters. He's amazing. He delivers these so well, and for a smaller operation, he's just, I think, able to have a level of customer service that you don't see with some of the bigger publishers, which is just, he gets it done somehow. Anyway, this is a drafting and tile placement game. If you don't know Isle of Cats, you are essentially using a lot of cards and trying to choose whether to use those cards to create scoring conditions at the end of the game, or using those cards to put out tiles on the board. You've been to this island that is completely populated by cats, and there's this evil, I think his name is Vaj. He's coming to the island, and so all the players are trying to get as many cats as they can into the boats off the island before Vaj shows up with his boats. So that's kind of the general theme of the game, and you're placing all these cats onto boats and in mashing them together in these tile boards. So the publisher of this, Frank West Company, the City of Games, have previously published the City of Kings and the original Isle of Cats, as well as its expansions, and a game called The Door and Gardens. And Frank West, the designer of this game, same thing. He designs all these games and publishes them through his company. And he also does some of the art as well. He has done the art on the Isle of Cats and The Door and Gardens, but on this game, on Cats, he also has a co-artist. His name is Dragalisco, or Louis Javier Lamente, and he has worked previously on Isle of Cats. So there are a bunch of different pledge levels for this one because there's been so much content already in the past. So we're gonna go through these. For $61 for the Veteran 1 pledge level, you're going to get the new stuff. So that's going to be the new Kittens and Beasts expansion, the Boat Pack, and the Kickstarter Pack 2. If you pledge at the $98 level, which is called Veteran 2, you're going to throw in the 2-minute box with a wooden insert. So that is essentially a larger box for Isle of Cats. Everything will fit together, and you'll have this wooden insert, and the idea is that the wooden insert will store everything in a way that you will be able to set up the game in 1 to 2 minutes. So essentially the $61 level will have all of the new content, and then the $98 level will have all of the new content plus this bigger box and this wooden insert. And then there's one other level, which is the $126 Veteran 3 level, and that's going to throw in a new game. It's sort of a roll and write game. I think it's a flip and write game because I think you're using cards. But it's sort of a flip and write version of Isle of Cats, and it's called Explore and Draw game, and that's also going to have a Kickstarter promo in with it. So depending on what you want, if you have the other stuff, you can get one of those 3 pledge levels. Now, for $127, there's something called the New Arrival Starter Kit. So that will get you the base game, the Kickstarter Pack 1, and everything from the Veteran 1 level. So the Kitten and Beast expansion, the Boat Pack, the Kickstarter Pack 2. So kind of all the new stuff. So that's kind of the lowest level thing that includes older content. And then we're going to skip forward to another Veteran Pack, and that's going to be called Veteran 4. That's $154, and that will take everything that we talked about before in the other Veteran levels, and we'll throw in an enamel pin pack. Continuing up the price range, but moving back to pledge levels that also include older content, we're going to have New Arrival 1, and that will be $197. So that will get you everything in the New Arrival starter kit, but it will also add in the Veteran 2 stuff and the Late Arrivals expansion. So the Veteran 2 stuff is the 2-minute box with the wooden insert, and the Late Arrivals pack is an expansion pack that allows the game to play up to 5 to 6 players instead of 1 to 4. If you want to pledge at the New Arrival 2 level, that's going to be $225, and that will throw in the Veteran 3 stuff. So as we're going up, we're just kind of mimicking the Veteran levels. And at the Veteran 3 level, you're getting that Explore and Draw game with the Kickstarter promo. So that's what's getting added into this level. That includes the base game and all the other stuff. And then there's a final level called New Arrival 3. That's $253, and that's going to include the base game, the Late Arrivals, all of the Veteran stuff, and the enamel pin pack. This newest Isle of Cats Kickstarter is aiming to deliver in March of 2022. Now, the last game on our list is Mechanical Beast, and this one will fund on June 27th. This is a smaller game. I've been talking about some games by bigger publishers earlier on, but this is kind of a smaller game. It won a lot of awards in 2019 in the Solitaire print and play contest, and I think that's why it's kind of gotten some heat and it's getting picked up and it's getting a full production. So this one will fund on June 24th as well. The minimum requested funding on this was very small. It was $6,000. They're currently sitting at $29,000, so about 5 times their minimum requested funding. This is for 1 to 4 players. It is a light game, and I would put the risk on this at medium high because it is being published by a publisher. While they've done a few things, they're a very small publisher. They're called Side Room Games. And the gameplay on this one reminds me of something like Forbidden Island. So it's a co-op and it's a tile placement game. And the idea here is that in the first half of the game, you're placing tiles and you're going into this dungeon and you're trying to achieve a certain goal or mission or find things. And then in the second half of the game, the tiles are going to start to be removed as the players are trying to escape. So it does very much feel like it fits into that same kind of game space as a Forbidden Island or a Forbidden Desert or even a Horrified. Now, Side Room Games has previously published Black Orchestra, McKee, and Orchard. And it's designed by Ben Moreta, and this is essentially his first design. So the success of this game in its print and play version is really kind of what's propelling his career at this point. And I think after this we'll see more designs from him, but this is really kind of his entry into game designing. And the art on it is by 2 artists, Apolline Etienne, who's previously done Fossilis, Muse, and Recreators, and Bridget Indelicato, who's worked on Art Deco, Star Trek Galactic Enterprises, and War Chest. Now, there's only a couple pledge levels on this one because it is this kind of smaller game. For $24, you can pledge at the engineer level, which will get you the game with all the stretch goals. However, if you really want to support the publisher and the designer, you can pledge at the $40 level, which is called Lead Engineer, and that's just going to get you a vanity reward, which is your name printed on the inside of the box. So it's nothing that you need, but if you like the design, if you like the publisher, if you want to support the designer, you can pledge at that higher pledge level. You'll get your name on the box, and they'll get more money from you. Now, Mechanical Beast is aiming to deliver in January 2022. And that brings us to the end of this section. That is the rest of the games that will be funding throughout the end of June that I'm sort of recommending to you. So now let's talk about the games that I personally backed from the last video. So there were 4 of these. The first was Chai Tea for 2. And when I was making the last video, I talked about how I missed their original campaigns for Chai and the High Tea expansion. And part of the reason for that, it was purposeful. It just happens that there are just a lot of really good, lighter set collection games, and I don't really need that many more of them, and that really isn't my thing. But Chai has done so well, and it's been so beloved, and it has quickly risen to the ranks of games I think that really need to be paid attention to. So when the opportunity came for another Chai, I definitely was aware and listening and looking. And the other thing is that this game is specifically for 2 players, so it's more of a head-to-head version, whereas the original one was for 1 to 4 players. This is also a heavier game than the original Chai. So both of those things, I think, helped me pull the trigger. I thought, well, it's a 2-player game. I can play it with my fiance, Kristen. And then on top of that, it's a little bit chunkier than the original Chai. So I backed it, and I'm very excited and happy about it. And who knows, maybe at some point I will pick up that original Chai. I just know for me, since I'm not as big a fan of medium light games, I tend to have fewer of those games in my collection. And so when I get a new one, I'm kind of getting rid of something. With heavier games, I'm more willing to kind of just buy the things I like and have them pile up. But with the lighter games, I try to keep it a little tighter. I also backed Mosaic, A Story of Civilization. This is Glenn Drover's new game. I'm a huge fan of Glenn Drover. He's recently been putting out some really cool games under his shingle, Forbidden Games, including Raccoon Tycoon and Lizard Wizard, but he's also worked on Railways of the World, and his company, Forbidden Games, is going to be handling Mosaic. It's the same publisher who did Lizard Wizard and Raccoon Tycoon. And those games are not only are they well designed, they're just very well published, great components, look fantastic, and he's doing a really good job with this production company of just operating it responsibly and listening to customers and things like that. So I'm very excited for a new game by him, especially a civilization building game with miniature buildings and things like that. Mosaic looks pretty cool. I also backed Path of Light and Shadow Solstice, and this is one that I don't think I was even aware of the original campaign or game, but I've heard such good things about it. It's coming around again. It's got this new expansion, Solstice, so it was an opportunity for me to jump in and kind of get it. And I know it's sort of a dudes on a map game. Seems kind of simpler and lighter for a dudes on the map game. I think it's got some deck building in it. It's a game that I definitely want to play and see if it's going to become a permanent addition to my collection or not. And it was something that I wanted to back and find out. And then finally, I backed The Witcher Old World. And this one's a little bit of more of, I think it's a high risk for this one, personally, The Witcher Old World, because the publisher's only really done 2 games before. They did Valhalla and they did Titans. I personally don't know anyone that has either of those games or that has played either of those games. And Valhalla didn't look too enticing to me. Titans I considered, but I ended up pledging another game called Titan. So very similar name, very different games. But Titans had some miniatures in it and sort of a skirmishing game. And I think the people who got it liked it, from what I hear. But the publishers only delivered those 2 games, and The Witcher is a huge IP. This is a lot to bite off, and it does have miniatures. And I did profile this in the last video, and I talked about the different pledge levels, and since that video, they did what a lot of other companies like Simon do, where they added in more things. So the final version of The Witcher had things that weren't in my video when I originally produced it, more expansions and things. So the price went up. And I was sort of happy to pledge at the lower pledge level, and then as the pledge level started climbing and more stuff was added in, I was much more on the fence. But in the end, I did decide to pledge the all-in. I do like the Witcher IP a lot. I am aware that this is a game that is designed more for casual gamers and fans of The Witcher, and that's okay. And I'm really curious to play the game and just see how it plays for myself and see how all of the additional content works in. If I don't like it, I don't think it's going to be that hard to sell it. And I think it'll also make for a lot of really good content here, both for YouTube and my eventual Twitch channel, which will be launching later in the year. So I want to play the game. I'm excited to play the game. I'm a little worried about things about it, but I pledged it and we're doing it. And hopefully it will pay off and it'll be really good. And if it does, I think the publisher, if they handled this game and they handled this game well, I think that's going to shoot this publisher into higher stratospheres and really open a lot of doors for them. And I hope it does work out, because the things that they have done so far do seem solid. They just haven't had the kind of success they need to graduate to that next level. So I backed The Witcher Old World. Now, I've only acquired 1 game this period, either from things that I've bought out at retail or Kickstarters coming in. And I think that's partly due to the shipping backup right now. Everything just keeps getting pushed back and back. I'm actually okay with that. I have enough to deal with right now with the games that I have and the content that I want to make. So if things kind of get pushed back, that's fine for me. I don't need the new games rolling, and I'm happier to have them kind of pushed back. But if someone's waiting for a specific game, I understand they may be getting a little antsy right now. Just hang in there. Everything's coming eventually. It just may take a while. So the one thing that I actually did acquire was the Terraforming Mars big box. I haven't even opened it yet. I don't know if you've heard the situation, but an affiliate of the publisher, the one who is producing the metal cubes, decided to publish every cube in a separate bag, which means that you're going to have 125 of these little bags, each with 1 cube in it, which just seems like the most ridiculous, wasteful thing I've ever heard of in Kickstarter delivery. It's not the publisher's fault completely, because it was the production arm that did this. But I don't know. Maybe they could have thought, who knows? Who knows with the what ifs? But I keep thinking they could have used some kind of a little tray, maybe manufactured by Game Trays, to set the metal cubes in and ship it in that, and that way they wouldn't get scratched. I think that was the worry here, was that if they put all these metal cubes together and send them out in the boxes, they're going to scratch and backers are going to be unhappy. And so they packaged every metal cube separately in a different plastic bag. I still haven't actually opened my box and looked at it yet. I don't want to deal with all these plastic bags. It's going to give me an anxiety attack, I think. But I did receive it. I did pledge it. I'm actually very excited to play it with the new components. I've also heard that some people are not excited about the quality of the 3D, tiles and things like that. I'm fine with it. If I needed it to be better, I could have gone out and bought a 3D printer and gone down the very long, arduous, time-consuming journey of trying to print my own 3D tiles. I chose not to do that. I chose to back this and get their 3D tiles. They may not be as amazing or good as kind of custom designed printed 3D tiles on your home 3D printer. That's okay. That's not what I was looking for. I was just looking for a solution with 3D tiles that were pretty good. And I'm very excited to play it. I think it's going to be awesome. I just don't want to deal with all the little plastic baggies. Aish. Okay, so that is the one game that I acquired this period. Which brings us to the only game that I've played this period, and the reason for that is we took a little trip to San Diego, our kind of first post-pandemic trip. We stayed in a hotel for a couple nights. We got all of our food takeout to go. We're still not at the point where we're going to do any kind of indoor maskless dining. But we went down there for a couple of days with our puppy. We went to some dog beaches. And then we also had an issue where while that was happening, the certificate for my website expired and I had to kind of go through a long, several days process to get that taken care of. And in the meantime, time went by and we didn't have as much time to play games. So only one game played this period, that is CloudAge. I just put out a first impressions video on CloudAge, so please go watch that. That has my full thoughts on CloudAge. I can't tell you in a nutshell though, I like the game, I like the colorfulness of it. The art by Christian Opera is great. It's very tactily pleasing in the way that when you're making upgrades on your blimps on the player boards, you get to flip these tiles. They kind of connect on with like puzzle piece connectors, like the little loop and the thing that slots in. And then when you flip it, you just take it and flip it over and put it back on that little puzzle piece connector. It's very clever. It's very fun to play with, and I like the design of the game. I do feel like the mechanics of the game are a little light for me. You're basically using deck building elements and building a hand to move around the board with your blimp, and then you're doing kind of a resource management game to upgrade your ship so that you can move more in one turn, or you have more combat ability, or you have the ability to plant more of these growth tiles around the board, which will give you more resources and victory points. So you've got that player board thing, you've got the deck building thing in your hand, and you've got movement around the boards, and then you're basically going and doing combat on certain cities when you finish your turn in them, but it's very kind of straightforward combat. You just either succeed or you don't if you have enough combat on your ship. And you can increase that by kind of paying resources to draw cards to increase your combat. So there's all these mechanics going along, and it may sound like a lot as I'm describing it right now, talking about it quickly. But when you're playing it, to me, it just felt a little light, a little on the medium light side. Now, there is a campaign. It's a 7-game campaign. I'm pretty sure it's repeatable and that you can kind of make different choices, so it'll be different every time you play it. I'm really excited to play the campaign. I think for me, that's where the game is really going to shine. I don't think it's the kind of game I'm going to pull out to play standalone, just because I feel like for me there is kind of like one or two mechanics missing to make it really thinky and chunky and compelling. And maybe that's not what the game is designed to be. So if you are looking for this kind of lighter Euro that's very fun and very visually pleasing, this is going to be a great game for you. If you're looking for something kind of really chunky and heavy from Alexander Pfister, this probably isn't the game. However, people like me who really like story games and campaign games, that's what I'm looking forward to. If I don't have the complexity at the kind of high level that I want it, then I want to have this kind of campaign that's going to evolve a little bit and build on what I've done and give me some fun things to think about in that kind of sphere. So I currently have this rated around a 7.5. I'm thinking that after I play the campaign, it may go up to like an 8.5, but we'll see. But again, if you want to hear more and you want to actually see the game and see how the different components and mechanics work, go check out my first impressions video. So that brings us to the end of another Kickstarter update video. Thank you very much for being here. If you made it all the way to the end, please like and subscribe if you think this video was of any worth to you and maybe gave you some things to think about or helped you make some Kickstarter decisions. Coming up from me, very, very soon, I will have my May game of the month. Now, it's been a little bit delayed. I do tend to publish those at the end of the month so that I'm kind of talking about what are my favorite and best games that I played that previous month. But with the trip to San Diego and kind of the website issues, and we're also having a plumbing issue in our place, and there's a plumber coming in today, which is kind of affects my ability to film. But because of that, my filming of the Game of the Month video for May has also been pushed back a little bit, but that's coming very soon in the next week. And then the June Game of the Month will probably, there won't be a whole month before that one. That will be coming in probably 2 or 3 weeks. And then the next first impressions videos you're going to see coming will be for Curious Cargo, Merv, The Heart of the Silk Road, and Kanban EV. And you can expect to see at least some of those before the end of the week, and probably Kanban EV at the very latest would be up by maybe Monday. That's my guess. And then I'll start to get into a few of the 2021 games that were published that at the beginning of the year that I'm still trying to play catch up on first impressions. So you'll see those 3 first impressions videos, and then after that, over the next month or so, you'll probably see some first impressions videos with me catching up on games that were published in the early part of this year. And then I'll be all caught up and I'll just be producing first impressions videos for games that are delivering to me and I'm buying from retail that have just released. And you'll also see some teach and review videos because I'll have more time to make those. And in a couple months, you're going to start to see more videos with a sometimes co-host named Ryan Everly. I'm very excited for him to join me here. I think the last thing I do before he joins is I will put out my top 25 games of 2020. And then when he joins, I think the first thing that we're going to be doing is a top 100 games of all time for both of us. And that will be sort of his introduction to you guys and to the channel. And probably on the heels of that, or maybe at the same time of that, we'll also be launching a Patreon. And things are going to get really cool here in the next 6 months with Ryan joining me and our top 100 games of all time and the launching of the Twitch channel. I'm really excited for the next half a year, year and a half at Think Outside the Board. And hopefully you'll join me. So again, thank you very much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video coming soon. Take care. Have a great week. I hope you're playing lots of games however you can right now.